everyone, it's Kim and welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. Welcome back to Bookmarks and Breadsticks. If you're new to my channel, a special hello. And I'm here today to talk about not specifically food writing books, but how to get started in the world of nonfiction reading. So to define nonfiction is prose writing that is based on facts, real events, and real people, such as biography or history. So essentially, fiction is what is not real, nonfiction is what is real. Now, nonfiction, I think throughout high school or in the education system, at least here in the United States, predominantly felt like a lot of textbooks, a lot of reference books. But I'm here to tell you that there's a whole world of creative writing and prose that makes nonfiction captivating storytelling, which is why I'm so drawn to food writing. So I am here with 5 easy tips to help you get started in reading nonfiction. Tip number 1, start with something you like. Just like how fiction has multiple subgenres like young adult, sci-fi, fantasy, I could go on and on. Nonfiction also has tons of subgenres as well. You could think about politics, world history, United States history, history in terms of the lens of military and wars, food writing, environmental sciences, agriculture, animals, nature. It goes on and on. So first tip, start with something you like. For me, I'll use the example of food writing. It helps to narrow down that scope, and then you have a smaller pool to choose from, but it's something you know you're already genuinely interested in. The second tip I have is figure out what medium you like to read in. This is actually something I had to learn about myself. I grew up most of my life only reading physical, hard, tangible books. And it took me a while to realize that I actually quite enjoyed certain areas of nonfiction as audiobooks. I have tried reading on an e-reader, a tablet, and found that digital e-books are not for me when it comes to nonfiction. It quite literally puts me to sleep. So knowing your medium is a really great second step. If you don't know it, don't be afraid to mix and match. So the great way for step number 3 or tip number 3 on how to get into nonfiction is start with something that's low cost or low risk. We still have public libraries. Utilize your public library, whether that's through the Libby app or interlibrary loans, or even now most libraries do have ways for you to check out digital copies of books. This way, if you don't like the first nonfiction book you ever pick up, you don't have to feel burdened by any kind of cost. Sometimes a hardcover book can be anywhere from $25 to $35. Start with something that you can borrow, or if you don't want to get it from your library, borrow a book from a friend. That way you can take your time with this book and really see if you enjoy it and not feel so burdened by the idea that, oh, I spent money on this, I have to read it. Fourth tip, don't be afraid to put down a book if it's not working. There are tons of nonfiction books out there. Don't give up on the first one if it ends up not being for you. If that first book is not for you, you can always go to recommended reading lists. You can find them all over Booktube. You can even ask your local library. There's often displays at the front of the library of books that are selling well through the New York Times, popular nonfiction books. So step 4 or tip number 4, don't be afraid to put down a book. And that also I'll use step 4 as don't be afraid to put down a book, but don't be afraid to ask for recommendations. The 5th tip I have for nonfiction books is start small. Maybe you're not ready to commit to a 300-page book all about the history of the banana. That's quite all right. There's lots of ways that you can get involved in nonfiction reading. One of the first ways I started was I started reading and writing newspaper articles, or I'm on a couple of daily email blasts from a couple different politics and food writing platforms. So subscribing for a free email, if you feel comfortable doing so, is a great way to get bite-sized snippets of 5 minutes of reading or less. And for the New York Times or the New York Post, you might get a longer article that's maybe 10 minutes of reading. If you're ready to graduate up from the news periodical world and nonfiction, why not try an anthology? One of my favorite ways to learn about new writers in nonfiction are through anthologies. Now, this anthology comes from the Best American Series, and the Best American Series puts together an anthology every year across numerous genres, both fiction and nonfiction. I'm holding their 2020 anthology for food writing. I buy this anthology every year, but I also buy the travel writing anthology because that's a different space of nonfiction that I'm new to, I'm a little bit more new to, and I'm trying to learn what writers are in this space and what I'm drawn to within travel writing. And in food writing, this helps me find some of the new and upcoming voices. I'll put a list over here of some of the other genres that the Best American Series itself puts out every year in an anthology format. There are tons of other anthologies that come out every year. This just happens to be my personal favorite. The great thing about these anthologies is that usually each story or article is maybe 10 pages. So you can pick this up, you can put it down. You could read one writer or piece a day, or you could binge a bunch. The great thing also about anthologies is that you can find lots of new voices that you like. There might be one or two that you don't like, but this is a great way to test the water and get a lot of variety for a very low cost or low risk if you do check it out from a library. Another tip, if you're interested in learning to read more nonfiction, is start with a recommended or best of list. We're very early into 2022, so you can probably do a quick Google search and find top 10 nonfiction books of 2021. The bestsellers list, the best of lists, those come out at the end of every year, and you'll be able to find what the general public thought was the most interesting nonfiction books in the year. I obviously read a lot of food writing, so I'll look for the best of list within food writing, but start broad if you want, just to see what was out there. Maybe the top book is something you never thought you'd be interested about, like The Global Trade of Sand. Or maybe you're looking for something in politics and you want to read the most recent book about Donald Trump. To each their own, but those best of lists are really fresh and top of mind because they were published back in December. It's only mid-February, so it's still a really great place to see what was popular last year. On the flip side, another tip is that you can use those outlets to find the most anticipated releases in nonfiction coming out in 2022. We're only in the first quarter of the year, and by now publishers will have announced on average what's coming out all the way from March through midsummer. So if there's a book that's on the horizon that's caught your eye, you can put it on a wish list and keep an eye for that publication, or request it from your library. Pre-orders and pre-sales and interest help show librarians or library communities that maybe this is a book they should order to keep on their shelves at their own personal library, or they'll be able to help you find it through the interlibrary loaning system. My final tip for nonfiction is it's okay to be moody when you read. There are times and places where I read, where I like to read nonfiction, where I don't. I actually really love listening to nonfiction books when I'm driving, because fiction books, if something like jumps out at you or there's something heartbreaking, I need to pay attention. I am driving a vehicle. Versus nonfiction tends to have a pretty even cadence as you keep driving. I also like to listen to nonfiction when I'm walking. Know what mood you need to be in or what setting you need to be in to enjoy your reading. So those are a couple easy tips to get you started in reading nonfiction. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them below in the comment section below, and make sure you hit like and subscribe on the way down there. I post new videos every Tuesday and Saturday, and I hope this was helpful, and I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye.